Okay, welcome everyone. Let me make this bigger. Can everyone see this? Okay, so today we're gonna try out a new format that we'll do from time to time. Hopefully it'll work out well. This will be an experiment. So I'm calling this a town hall, and basically we'd like this to be pretty interactive. So please jump in with comments and suggestions. That's the real purpose of this. So be more of an interactive session where we're soliciting feedback and also new ideas that we hadn't thought of. All right, so here are the topics, but we can actually veer into any topic you want as well. So we've been working on, we've had a lot of requests for more on the education front. I'll tell you what we've been doing, and I'll see what you think. Also, we're starting to plan for the next summer school. This will be bigger and better than ever. And I'd like to ask you a few things about that we're trying to nail down. We've had also, many people request kind of some sort of summary after Neuro-Symbolic Wednesdays. So we have a little question we'd like to put forth about the sort of form factor for that. And then ongoing thing, different ways to participate with us. All right, so let me just say, so what we're doing here. So many of you have seen some of you have seen the beginnings of the learning, what we're calling the learning site. This is a page you can get to from the Centaur AI Institute webpage. And this is where you'll be able to see ultimately all of our videos from all of our past events. We've had summer schools, of course. We've also had winter workshop idea that has happened most years. And really a total of about 200 talks, including tutorials and panels, and over 100 hours of content. So, so we show you how we're organizing that, and I'd like to hear if you have any suggestions. So maybe I'll pass it to Olga, and Olga can show it to you.
Okay, hello everyone. I'd like to show a small demo of our learning site. Here it is. Here on the left, we are going to have all the events that Alex just mentioned, all our summer schools, winter events. For now, it's just like a small sample of our last summer school, of presentations from the last summer school. And I would like to show you a few capabilities, search capabilities that we have here. And I'll use this opportunity as a shameless self-promotion of my AAA paper. Let's say you would like to look for my presentation at AAA. You can, my presentation of the AAA paper at our last Neuro-Symbolic summer school. You can input my last name here, or like first name. It doesn't matter. We can try by Olga. And yeah, here is the corresponding presentation. Here's my co-author here. Description, tags. Yeah, please like, share. Okay, you can also search by some topics like robotics, some by keywords. Yeah, You can search by tags. Let's also try, let's say, autonomous vehicles. Yeah. So, so this is the search capabilities. And by the way, we are actively seeking for feedback. So if anyone would like to provide some feedback, like what other capabilities you would like to see on the site, feel free to write in the chat. Or if you have a longer comment, let us know. I mean, longer comment if you'd like to speak up, let us know, and we can add you to our room, and you will be able to speak up if you want. But unless I see any comments, I will continue, but feel free to interrupt me. So this is current capabilities of the learning side. And now I'll show you a couple of our internal documents of our work in progress on those. So here on the left, you can see all our previous events. We have 4 summer schools. NSSS stands for NSAI Summer School. We have it for previous years, and 3 previous winter workshops. And we have a bunch of talks for every one of those events. Some of the events are actually pretty big, like 5 days long. For example, this winter workshop, it was 5 days long, like each day has its own topics. Day 2 use cases, day 3 NLP, day 4 knowledge, day 5 learning with less, etc. So we have all these, like about 200 talks. And for example, winter workshop 2024, it was workshop at AAAI conference. So we have about 200 different tutorials, presentations, talks, panels. And also separately, what we are working on is a course syllabus. Course on Neuro-Symbolic AI. It consists of 3 parts. And each of the presentations from our previous events, it contributes to one or maybe a few of topics in the course. So that's, I'll show you a separate document how we are working on this. But to summarize, we have talks for our previous events. For each talk, we are working on the tags and mapping to our course syllabus. And first of all, here is the list of all the tags we have currently created. It's like work in progress, so we might change some of these, but it's the current list. And again, here is the syllabus, part 1, foundations, and corresponding talks for part 1. And then we have part 2, frameworks and methodologies, and corresponding talks for part 2. And part 3, applications, and we have corresponding talks for part 3. And as you may see, for every talk, we map it to a part of the course, and we also tag it with a few of the tags that I showed above. And we do it manually. We do not use any tools for this because we want to make sure it's as accurate as possible. That's why it's a little bit time consuming. As you can see, we have like educational committee. We meet regularly. We discuss every single presentation that we had previously, and we think about corresponding tags and which part of the course it contributes to. So currently, we are done with 3 summer schools. So next thing, like we are currently work in progress for summer school 2022, and after this we are going to be working on winter workshops. So we are about halfway through, but it's already should be enough, like about 100 talks for you to start looking on the learning side once we put them here. But before I switch topic, any comments, any suggestions, any other capabilities you would like to see on the learning side, any reactions?
Yeah, and just some background kind of on our thought process. So we figure that people are, in some cases, just wanting to pot shot. They already have their research threads that they're doing and only interested in certain topics. And this is why we have a search capability, so you can find out about anything in a more targeted way, look for things. Another way, of course, you could also go by the event. So last year's event or year before, and to see what was there, browse it. But then there's another kind of need that we're trying to respond to, which is people just trying to get up to speed overall on Neuro-Symbolic AI. And there, what Olga showed us a kind of course sequence. And this is a precursor to what could actually be a real course, meaning with university credits and the right number of lectures for a semester or quarter. So, and we're thinking about that as the next step after this. Okay. So if anybody is interested in hosting that as a university, we have some discussions already, or wants to help with that or any part of this, so please let us know. But that's the overall, that's what we're trying to achieve, is two things: allow people to just find stuff in a targeted way, number one, and number two, allow people to just go through some kind of course-like sequence, and ultimately an official course for credits. And really, we're about halfway done, as Olga said. We thought we would stop here before we finish it, just in case, we need some course adjustment, so to speak. And so we thought we'd take the opportunity now to get some feedback and ideas before we finish what we're doing. And also, of course, we can always use more people power for anyone interested in education. Yeah, let's, Joe, any comments so far you're seeing?
Okay, if there are no comments, actually, if you think about anything, you can type it later. I think we are going to have time for live discussion in the end. So maybe for now we can continue. But if you think about any comments, suggestions, questions, either type it or let us know that you would like to speak, and we will add you to our room so that you can just speak. Maybe for now I can continue, Alex?
Yep.
Okay. So another thing, one second, where we were in the presentation. Okay. I showed you the learning site demo, course syllabus. Okay, here are the tags, again, the same that I showed you already. And now, okay, Alex mentioned that we are working on short versions, like summary versions of all our Neuro-Symbolic Wednesday presentations. We are currently testing 3 different formats: 10-minute summary, 3-minute clip, or 1-minute short video. Not sure if you had a chance to look at those yet, but we've shared those links on Discord yesterday. I can quickly show you, currently we created it for Asim's presentations, for testing, and for 10-minute summary, it's going to be, you can see timelines here, right? It's like short summary of the whole talk. So from each part, like small section of each part of the presentation, shortened into 10 minutes. This is 10-minute video. For 3-minute one, it's just the short summary of the core idea in the paper, for Asim's presentation, it was DeepSeek R1, so it just summarized paper in 3 minutes, like a 3 minute summary. And we also have a format of 1 minute. It's just one very small idea from the presentation, maybe not necessarily the main one, but just one small idea from the presentation, and we may have a bunch of those. So it's 1 minute. So you can go ahead and take a look at all those and let us know today by the end of the call, or you can mention it on Discord, which ones you like better, maybe all three of them, maybe some of them you think are not helpful or useful. But anyway, that's currently the three formats that we are testing. And yeah, we're actively seeking for your feedback. We're making our education better for you, trying to. Okay, if there are no comments, then Alex, I'll pass it over back to you to speak about the summer school. And let me know if you'd like to share your slides, or I can do it on my screen.
Yeah, I'll go back to sharing.
Sounds good.
So we have a comment. The field is just moving too fast, and you can get most of the information, except in extreme cases, from the language models, archive papers, and be able to hit the ground running. Yeah, that's always there. That's a good point. And so, you could say a reframing of the question is, what should we do to augment that? Whatever you can find online through searching, what would help the most? Obviously, we can get the actual authors of things to speak. This is something you don't get with the internet, and ask them questions. That's the point of Neuro-Symbolic Wednesdays in particular. But and so there's the curation, aspect as well, because there's so much stuff out there. What's good, what's interesting, what's a nice mix of things to see. This is hopefully part of what we offer that you can't really get from the internet, but it's a good way to frame the question. You can already kind of tap into the internet. So what is the greatest value we could provide to the community overall? Maybe some other things we're not doing, toward helping people get up to speed in Neuro-Symbolic AI, and also start to do good research.
Sorry to interrupt. I see one more comment, or a couple more
Yeah.
comments. One is about the login feature on the learning side, at least with GitHub, that it currently returns an error. Thank you for the feedback. We will take a look into this. If you notice any other issue, like as we mentioned, it's like work in progress. I think I logged in with GitHub. We have two options, I believe, with LinkedIn or GitHub. But yeah, thank you for the feedback. We will, yeah, if you can also mention your operating system, it would be also helpful for us to debug it, because I think for me it's working. And another thing I wanted to mention is that the learning side is working even in the countries where YouTube does not work. So that's a benefit of the learning side. And maybe there are some other comments, but
Here's a comment. It would be useful if the Institute incubated community projects and facilitated collaborations by actual community events like the Linux Foundation or Ionic Culture Discord. Okay. I'm not familiar with that, but that sounds really interesting. Maybe we can follow up on that with Barber B on Discord. Aha. Here's the fun part. Now we can actually pull people in who want to speak. Like we can hear your voice, kind of thing. So why don't if you want, do you want to voice your question and discuss it? basically post your question on Discord, and then can send you the restream link, and you click on that, and you'll appear as a person able to speak. This is part of our experiment, is to see how this works. Barbara B, if you're catching what I'm saying, put it on Discord, and then put what you just said on Discord, and then can send you a link if you do want to speak. Any other questions, comments as well? Anybody who wants to say something, announce yourself on Discord. And okay, well, that may be going on. Why don't you continue, Olga? Or should I continue?
I think, Alex, I'm done. You can continue with the summer school announcement.
Okay. You showed the tags?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And this as well, so you can move to the next one. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna make it bigger. Okay, yeah, so we're starting to plan the summer school now. So one of the most important things is the date to lock down. So our current thought is August 6 and 7. That's a Thursday and Friday. The other thing we're always struggling with is the least bad time. So we can, of course, it's always going to be painful for somebody, whatever time span we pick. But so we usually pick the block, which is East Coast time, and then that East Coast US time. Now, but also the number of hours we've experimented with. One year we did 4 or 6 hours, I think, but more days. And no one's ever really happy with anything. I mean, there's always somebody unhappy. But we haven't found something that stands out as better so far. But doesn't mean we don't keep listening for ideas and feedback. And then Thursday and Friday is another kind of choice. End of the week, sort of the idea. Maybe people are a little bit more, have a little bit more flexibility near the end of the week sometimes. But then again, it goes into Friday evening, which maybe kind of sucks. So let us know, basically, any fervent opinions, especially. It's sort of like, meh, just pick something if that's your view. That's fair too. Okay, and then we always do some curated mix of, what we think are research talks that are impactful. Tutorials, especially on topics that are emerging or very foundational. We probably do a wider set of concepts than we try to cover a wider set of concepts than maybe most people think of as Neuro-Symbolic AI, deliberately to expand the range of the field and then a size of the toolkit kind of the field. Panels, this is where you may, or I think people may have some interesting opinions. And because the panel can range from technical kind of issues, more of a kind of strategic nature for the field. Like, for example, in many earlier years, it was, hey, we need our ImageNet moment, and so on. So, but people did respond in our community with different kinds of benchmarks, and we highlighted the ARC Prize, in one of our recent meetings, as potentially a very good example that of a benchmark that can motivate neurosymbolic AI work. So this you could say kind of came out of some of our panel discussions, or at least was highlighted like strategic questions or suggestions for our field is one kind of a thing. Another thing is just the connection between neurosymbolic AI and some bigger societal issues, because we do have the potential for things that people really want in society, arguably, explainability and correct results and so on. And we do sort of have maybe more access to sort of interesting people that might not otherwise show up as speakers to your average event. So you can potentially dream big on the kinds of people we could invite. And then we do want to kind of foment more kind of commercial effort in neurosymbolic AI. This is part of the to me, achieving success and as a part of AI is showing commercial value. This is certainly what happened with LLMs. And so anybody who wants to either point out a startup, a neurosymbolic AI startup, or alert them to the opportunity to get some visibility here. And often we've found that there, of course, we got some to speak. In some cases, we've seen that people want to stay in stealth. So, but whatever, want to let people know the opportunities here. And then for some visibility, hands-on coding is another thing that actually almost every year of the summer school, we sort of had plans that got to various degrees of completion. We never quite got there. But it's been a request out there that we have some sessions where we sort of do, somebody hosts or shows a notebook or something, and everyone can join and try out some software or framework. Now, because it's a more complicated logistically. This is why it ended up being too complicated for the time we had in previous events. But if we hear good demand for this on this one, we'll try to make it happen this time. Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We have Benjamin here, and maybe Benjamin, not sure if you have your thoughts on previous topics we were discussing, or to add on this one. But Alex, at some moment when you think it makes sense, we can.
Oh, great. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Hey, so I've been doing like open source software for like 25 years because my father worked on the 486 and was at Red Hat. And I like the community engagement that I see in some of the places, and that every week I attend these peer review paper discussions with Yannick Kilcher, who's a YouTuber. He's been the whole CT and take a lot of his time, and I think discuss how quickly everything moves. Like by the time neuro field is on to like thing, it's not even Europe. It's not people as to like what the latest, and so people resorted.
Oh, you froze for us.
Yes, it looks like Benjamin has some
Oh.
issues with internet.
Benjamin, if you can hear us, you froze for us. Okay, let me oops, maybe he'll reconnect. But I'll at least read what one thing he posted. Right now I'm on the technical steering committee of a Linux. Hey Benjamin.
Yeah, sorry. So I don't know, like everything else works fine, but this website is acting weird. So yeah, so every week we have like a peer review paper discussion where we have like 2 hours of going over the most impactful paper from archive, and then we also have like 2 hours of like mentoring or like discussions about what's in the news, and then often this is recapped in like the ML news segment that he has on his YouTube channel, or his paper discussions where he whiteboards the papers to explain them. And that's kind of how a lot of people are keeping up with how quickly things are moving. And then we've also spawned like multiple groups, like one with the ARC challenge, where people were working on the ARC challenge, and one called Open Assistant. And then people have created their own little discords for like theoretical neuroscience and GPU mode for doing GPU kernels. I think GPU mode is now as big as Yannick's Discord is, simply because he's been tied up being a CTO. And I feel like if you had more community engagement around projects, and that people would have more opportunities to make friends, and it sort of makes like the stickier community. And we kind of do some of the same stuff at the Linux Foundation, where every week we're meeting up and we're talking about our progress on our code bases and what things we got to keep track of. And in April, I'm going to the Linux Foundation MCP event to talk about introducing deontic first order logic into the MCP protocol, because it's sort of a security nightmare. I'm not sure if you've seen things with like MCP or Cloudbot, I guess this week, having people inject prompts that steal people's keys and stuff. So it's been my position that the language models can do some stuff with deontic logic, and so therefore maybe having this with decentralized IDs can maybe prevent some of the prompt hijacking, maybe. And so yeah, like I think if there's more like tangible, people can actually tangibly commit stuff and have it like really operate in the real world, I think it might be a stickier thing. Oh, I guess also I do some stuff with Stanford Law School, and I'm trying to convert the legal corpus to deontic first order logic as well. So maybe we can train like the law, Asimov's laws, into these robots someday.
Yes, I had that thought as well. No, I love it. So love everything you said, Benjamin. I think we are that is part of the hope, is that part of it is we just know a lot of people and we invite them and they give an academic style talk typically, but we also want kind of more, or in addition, the vibe of here's my project and let's get into the weeds of it, and more kind of developer style. So I think that's what you're describing. So, and maybe the best way for us to start creating that vibe is to do a first example. Maybe that's your example, if you wouldn't mind, or if you're in a position, depending on the maturity of your project, to
Yeah, I mean, everything I do is AGPL, open source, and through the Linux Foundation or through Lion, which is a European foundation that is open source. And yeah, I can publish what I do with the group. I only started recently attending meetings like 2 weeks ago or something. But yeah, I think that right now people are doing a lot of building, and that the neurosymbolic stuff is the right set of guardrails to prevent whatever they're building from being insecure.
Yeah. If you want to present in an upcoming meeting, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, I think also we have this idea of people presenting papers that are not necessarily their own, more reading group style. We haven't had any takers yet. Asim effectively did that with the DeepSeek paper. But particularly we suggested some, which I'll show in a second, some classic papers. Arguably, Neuro-Symbolic goes all the way to 1943. So that was another thought. But what else do you think we could do to kind of get more like this Linux Foundation vibe that you're describing?
Well, the Linux Foundation does have individual working groups, and most of the people that show up to the Linux Foundation, I would say 80% are people who are employed by like some company like Intel, AMD, Red Hat, NVIDIA, et cetera, and so forth. And so, and what these companies do is that they just say, well, you have 20% of your time that we're going to pay you to just do whatever you want, right? And so they spend their 20% of their time, of their budget, contributing to some open source projects. And I think if you go with the AI safety or hallucination aspect and you do outreach at different events where people are going to be like, I don't know, I'm assuming you guys went to NeurIPS and stuff,
Yeah.
for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then have projects where they can commit their code and then be able to have them show their employers, hey, I've been doing this, and not just is it useful for me to learn, but also it's good for the company bottom line or something. I think that's a good way to get a lot of really good developers on board. And then with regards to the community, like I guess the Twitterverse or the Redditverse or something, I guess it's mostly like hype driven. And so for that kind of thing, like what really matters is having really cool demos. So like having like a cool, 30, 60 second demo that shows something that no one's ever seen before is what makes a lot of projects really blow up. And like CloudBot, for instance, was a security nightmare, but what they did was they had a cool demo, and then because of the cool demo, all of the enthusiasm went into that project. And so there's that. And then if you are looking for some of the ML researchers, I would suggest Tim Scarf at Machine Learning Street Talk. He's originally came from like the Yannick Kilcher Discord. He's got a YouTube channel that's heavily, like everyone who's really like an experienced ML engineer likes to watch, these sort of long form videos with like the leaders of AI, whether they be Pedro Domingos or Schmid Huber, or there's like lots of people like Wolfram, et cetera, and so forth. And so he does interviews with people like that. And I think if you were to talk to Tim Scarf about setting up an interview, he could interview you about your Neuro-Symbolic Institute. And he does a lot of stuff with the Active Inference Institute. I'm not even sure if you know who or what Active Inference is. But I think if you're looking for more the researcher side, Tim Scarf would be able to put you on his show, and you could describe why Neuro-Symbolic is so important. And Pedro Domingos did some long interview with him about this thing called tensor logic. and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
okay, yeah, for example. So I think that those are maybe some good ideas.
Excellent, excellent. We have a comment. I would also be interested in a discussion about the origin and history of neurosymbolic studies. And someone posted the active inference.institute link. If anyone has a reaction or wants to follow on with what Benjamin said, please comment.
And I've had some discussions with Stephen Rolfram, and maybe he's getting a little bit old these days, but he's a really smart egg, and I think he does like office hours, or used to do office hours every week on his own YouTube channel, where he would take like questions from the audience and provide feedback to people who had some ideas either about science or about, I guess, technically neurosymbolic AI, which is kind of what he was doing before a lot of us were doing at least before I was doing neurosymbolic AI. Wolfram was working on it.
Yeah, some of these names you mentioned, we've either discussed already with them, and they couldn't make it in past events, but we'll get them at some point. Pedro we had in the past. But these are good suggestions. Anybody want to kind of build on what some of the things Benjamin's mentioning? Anyone want to jump in? All right, good. Well, feel free to hang out here, Benjamin, if you want, or not, but I'll go through a few more slides. So so here's some of the papers I was just mentioning, and these are just at least some that if you say, I would like to present that paper, we would say, yes, please do. But it not just limited to these. If you want to propose a different one, that can work also. But so we want to kind of add this reading group feel. So please let us know. And this thing I mentioned about 1943, this is the McCulloch and Pitts paper, which for those of you who have followed our logical neural network work, it was building off of the ideas here. And we'll be doing more work in the Institute, actually building off of this work. But what's interesting, one thing that's interesting about this is both neuro and logic are in one model in this paper, and it's the very first neural net paper. So Neuro-Symbolic is not just a post-fusion of two big ideas. It actually was already in the very first neural net. Now, we have opportunities for research, which I'll come to in a second. Open source building, a lot. I'd love to hear thoughts on a slide I'll present in a sec, Benjamin, on open source building. Let me mention this other thing that's new. And this is because there's one thing you touched on, Benjamin, is there's a lot of stuff happening, of course, in AI, very, at a faster and faster rate, it seems. And we'd like to create a lot more commentary on connections with neurosymbolic ideas, kind of reactions to current events and things that are happening in the field, in software development, and so on. So people who would like to write, let's say, half a page or a page, sort of blurbs reacting to things, around neurosymbolic ideas, we will welcome that. We have a thought in mind how to do that. And any help coding-wise on the learning site would be great, as well as, possibly things like tagging and so on. But the search engine that Olga showed, sort of should be useful, hopefully. But there are, of course, much more you could do inside a search engine. In fact, it could be neurosymbolic. And always spreading the word about our events and different things we're doing, meaning posting stuff or any other way that would really be helpful for us. So this actually maybe relates to what you're working on, Benjamin. So this is has some of these kinds of goals. So this is a reaction to this agentic stuff going on, being kind of loosey-goosey. Maybe a similar inspiration to why you're doing your work. So we're looking for people who are interested in this. This has aspects of programming languages, of course, agents in the sense of real AI agents with in terms of taking actions and formalisms around actions, preconditions, postconditions, and so on. So we have a lot of planning going on around this. So anyone interested in this, let us know. We should probably absolutely have you present, Benjamin, and then we'll probably learn something that could help here. And also in general, so, and as we've been starting to say, we're starting to fund academics. Now, if I understood you right, Benjamin, were you talking about companies funding developers to work 1 day a week, their own developers, or were you talking about the Linux Foundation funding developers?
In general, like the Linux Foundation is like just a place where people commit code and work on a sort of shared roadmap on that open source code. But I would say like 80% of the work that's done at the Linux Foundation is done by employees of TikTok or Supermicro or NVIDIA or whomever, because most of these companies realize that if they just make their developers work on only one thing, they just burn out and they don't get new skills in addition. And so most of the companies have something like 20% time where, your regular job is your job and you do that 80% of the time. And then your 20% of your time, they will do some sort of let you work on any open source project you want, or you could even go work at a soup kitchen. And they even have a lot of times, like when I used to work at Intel Corporation, they would do matching. So if I donated $1,000 to the soup kitchen, then Intel would also donate $1,000 to the soup kitchen. But it could also be the Linux Foundation, right? Like I could work 20% of the time at Linux Foundation, and then if I donated $1,000 to Linux Foundation, then my employer would match that $1,000 to the Linux Foundation as well. And that's where a lot of the resources that go into different projects at the Linux Foundation come from, is from industry, just allowing their employees to work on projects that are impactful in their 20% of their free time, so-called. And if you had something similar, where you were to attract people in the industry like NVIDIA or whomever, to contribute code, and then you have a nonprofit, then these employers are going to be okay with it as long as they're not like failing on their deliverables or whatever. So I think this is probably a good source of having developers work on open source projects, as long as it's, I think, more practical than theoretical, because a lot of times I see that there's projects that are really theoretical and abstract that don't have like any real world impact. And I think a lot of people want to see that their code actually does something in the real world, not just sit on a shelf and look pretty. So I think the more practical it is, like if you had a neuro-symbolic MCP protocol, for example, then you get people from Anthropic and OpenAI contributing to this neuro-symbolic MCP protocol, for example, rather than some like long proof string about Fermat's last theorem or something, right? Where you might not get people from NVIDIA or whatever working on that because they're like, well, how does that help me? You know?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Let me read a post, or maybe at the University of Edinburgh NESI Reading Group, we've been discussing the value of counterposing the cognitivist and pragmatist perspectives on the necessity of Neuro-Symbolic AI. While the cognitivists support Neuro-Symbolic AI from the perspective of emulating processes in the human mind, the pragmatists don't have any such pretensions and see NESI as valuable primarily for practical necessities. Organizing a lecture around those two approaches and who is working on which side could be very interesting to watch. Cool. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, see, one thing we're at one challenge, but also interestingness about Neuro-Symbolic AI is there are really many entry points that bring you to the same general place. One of them is cognitive science, which is just more trying to figure out humans and trying to make AI arguably better by using inspirations from how humans work. But another one that you're talking about, for example, I would call you potentially a member of this pragmatist camp. We, by the way, are kind of both, or everything. We have a little bit of everything in the Institute and its associated corp. But so these are at least two very different entry points into Neuro-Symbolic AI. They're all valid to us and all necessary in our larger goal of kind of, you could say, improving the state of AI by, enabling Neuro-Symbolic AI and having it become, much bigger, much more prominent in the field. So good comment. Thank you. Maybe we'll reach out to you. Catch Max's contact info. We'll reach out to Max on that. Max, do you want to jump in here and talk about that anymore? If so, Ken will send you a restream link. Okay, while we're waiting on that. So just on this, these are different topics of interest, as you can see, covering these different kinds of grounds, ranging at the bottom from we are actively now starting to work on compilers, databases, and sometimes with the functional programming aspect, logic programming, of course, all the way to pure theory. You've seen some of the Institute's work that's just pure math, basically, but also we've highlighted people working on very deep mathematical foundations we think are important to highlight, all the way to abstruse things like category theory, which our tutorial on that will probably appear in the summer school, the one that didn't happen in the last event. And then everything in between, methodology, methodological ideas and strains. So Max, open invite. Anybody else wants to jump in?
As far as a topic of interest, I don't see the legal domain. I see medicine. And I know I go to these meetings every 2 weeks at the Stanford Law School group. and it's mostly lawyers, but it's like lawyers who are using LLMs, and then the LLMs end up hallucinating and coming up with stuff that sometimes gets submitted into court, and then these guys get sanctioned because, you know, Chat GPT gave them a case that doesn't exist, right? And so what this project that I've been working on is trying to create like a decentralized architecture and be able to be put into robots, but also be able to help the legal domain, because I'm trying to teach the robots how to obey the law and trying to teach lawyers how to not believe the hallucinating robots at the same time. And I'm doing this by trying to convert the entire legal corpus into this temporal deontic first order logic. And for sure, like, it is the case that because the law and case law is like different people coming up with different rules at different times that often conflict, at some point there's going to have to be some effort to like create a unified system that reconciles all of the inability of human beings to draft formal logic or to be consistent with the rules that they themselves put down. But I feel like this sort of thing would help. And as an example, you know, there's a guy in Lake Oswego, Oregon, who took his kayak into the lake, and the legal case about whether or not it was legal for him to put his kayak into a public lake has been going on for 13 years. And I can't for the life of me understand how this should take 13 years. Like, it should just literally you should have the text, and it should go into like a neuro-symbolic compiler, and then out of the neuro-symbolic compiler should come out an answer, right? And that's maybe I understand the legal system's political in addition to being, you know, a formal logic system, but I think 13 years, unless you have lots of money, it means, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees just to determine whether or not you can kayak in a public lake.
Yeah, no, what you're describing, we've definitely thought a lot about, and you may or may not have seen as the DARPA. We've had Benjamin Grossoff speak in the past, in our past events, and he had a recent DARPA project on the use of deontic logic for, of course, in a DoD context. But you know, the legal, you know, version of that is, you know, that there are many complicated versions that have to do, or sub-problems, let's say, that both kind of share legal and military orders. You could say it, you know, related to that is company policies, right? So, and so we have had this kind of thought slash dream for a while. Actually, is I think the hard part is, and so I completely agree, and I love what you're doing there. I think, to me, what a big part of what prevents the dream kind of eventually having that kayak case have some kind of automated support, you could say, to accelerate it, is natural language itself. At least that's one big obstacle, is the full translation of laws, you know, into such a formal form. We can't quite do that technically at the moment, but talk to me about that. We have Max. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. All right, Max, do you want to elaborate on your point?
Yeah, I think the point is maybe not as if I were to reword what I said, I would not say it as pointedly or critically of the cognitive side. I think that, like you said, there are lots of different ways that people can come to Neuro-Symbolic AI, and this can be really helpful in some ways because it means there's a lot of interest from different perspectives. But this can also be confusing for a lot of people because sometimes two people are talking about Neuro-Symbolic AI, and they are thinking about it from totally different backgrounds and from totally different goals, honestly. I think that when some people talk about the system one versus system two thinking approach to understanding Neuro-Symbolic AI, it can be off-putting to people who don't see that as a goal, who don't see emulation of human cognitive faculties as a goal. And I think that there would be a lot of utility in bringing this kind of difference of opinion or difference of perspective to conscious thought, at least so that everybody is aware that there is kind of a difference in perspective, that neither side is like one out, but at least so that people have a better understanding of what people who come to Neuro-Symbolic AI from a different background are thinking.
Yeah. I think this is a good topic. I think, it's this tension between kind of, for example, conferences eventually specializing or having specialized tracks. That's one way to deal with this kind of like, well, I'm interested in this, but not this other's crap. but another, but then what you miss with that is, the different ideas, like, even though you didn't initially want to hear them, they are actually useful for you, and will maybe be the thing you're missing and cause a light bulb to go off. So, sometimes conferences, have these sort of, when they do their invited speakers in the plenary session, they kind of have this random, here's a person from, psychology, and it doesn't make, it's not the normal kind of speaker for that conference, just to kind of add something new into your mental mix, everybody's mental mix. We've sort of taken the view of here that but this is not necessarily optimal, so it's worth discussion, that at this stage of Neuro-Symbolic AI, even though it's not technically new, as I pointed out, it's got a new kind of revival, it seems, of interest, a surge of interest due to kind of this, runaway train of AI and its impact in society and commerce and so on. So that maybe people need much more of this mix right now, because as a field we need to figure out a lot of things, and everyone needs to kind of just learn a lot more to find their lane, and eventually we create these bigger lanes. So we're taking right now a strategy of like showing you a little bit of everything, showing everybody a little bit of everything. But that may or may not be optimal, or maybe we should adjust that as we go on. Andrew, welcome.
Hey, Alex. Hey, everyone.
Right.
I wanted to raise a question
Please.
regarding the news feed. Like, it's really easy to find the news feed on LLMs or like new developments in the AI on any field, but it's really hard to find some place that would encapsulate all the relevant information regarding neurosymbolic. Like, it's impossible to follow the field. There are plenty of papers coming every day, and it would be really beneficial if like you guys or someone would just post short summaries every day, like just to be in touch of what's actually relevant nowadays.
Yeah, as was mentioned, this is very interesting. We've thought about, well, also along the lines of having a big community project. There's this thing that we've mentioned already, something around an agentic protocol kind of thing, and that I think Benjamin's work intersects with and what we're doing. So, but maybe we'll join forces. But this another thing we've thought a lot about is some kind of search aid for finding neurosymbolic, stuff, and and we thought about leveraging existing things like Semantic Scholar and so on, but having something, for the express purpose of finding neurosymbolic stuff and eventually maybe an automated, you know, um, filter that will send you stuff that appears every day. Now, and of course, we should use neurosymbolic technology in that, right? So it would double as a showcase of recent technologies. But uh, but to me, it seems like you might need something like that just to keep up. You need some machinery as opposed to. I mean, we of course do a lot of human curation, and we hope that provides some value because it's hard for an automated system to know. No, this is a really impactful paper. This is an incremental paper. So, but it just, capturing at least for the goal of capturing stuff that appears, because there are hundreds of papers probably that, and we may have actually seen them, but we can't actually include them all in our thing. And there does probably need to be some kind of comprehensive, index or daily filter and so on. So that's one idea that we've had. So if anyone wants to really thinks that's cool and wants to like do that, we'd love to kind of do that. So, but what do you think of that, Andrew? Would that kind of treat?
I think it's a great idea, but I doubt that you can get rid of human curation at this stage. Like, this is, I guess, the most important part. And also, like, basically going back to what Benjamin said about what they do in their community, like going every week after one paper from archive, I think is also a really good idea. Like, the problem I see with the existing structure with Neuro-Symbolic Wednesdays is that people are presenting their own research in general on the meetings, and it's not necessarily like captures like what's going on in the field right now. Like even like some short captions regarding what was published. Like if it interests me, I'll go and read the paper. If not, I'll just skip it. In this sense, like just saving time for people to get into what's currently being published.
And do you think that? Yeah, please.
I'd like to add that what happens is we do 2 hours of the most impactful archive paper, and the 2 hours after that are like peer support. So there's lots of people who are working on stuff and they're like stuck, and they're like, oh, I've been hitting my head against the wall and I'm stuck on this thing. And there'll be people who work at CERN or people who work at NVIDIA will like talk it out about how to get unstuck, or hey, I have this great idea. Am I just crazy? Am I taking crazy pills? And they're like, no, that's a great idea. Or no, don't do that. That's been done. You're just reinventing an RNN with more steps. And so like this sort of like peer support network is useful, and people show up every week because they know they can be helpful to others, or because they know that they can get help working on their projects that way.
And in that format, how does somebody kind of oh, here's what I'm working on, and
so like the first 2 hours are like on the Discord stage. There's like a feature called Stages, and so people are can be brought up on the stage if they want to provide a question about the paper that's being presented, but it's not like open mic where every cough and sneeze is being caught. And then after the 2 hours of the paper discussion, then there's like an open discussion where it's more free form and people can just keep their mics turned off and can jump in. And occasionally you have to prevent people from wanting to talk over each other when they get into their little heated debates about things. But generally it's fine because the community is intelligent and not like an impulse control problem. And people just talk about, the things that they're working on, or the things they'd like to work on. Or sometimes about if there's big news, like some new model comes out, we'll just have an open discussion about some new model that came out, like GPT 5.2, or what happened at the last NeurIPS or whatever, in the open discussion. But a lot of people really find it helpful that they can get help and they can be mentors or get peer, assistance during this sort of open discussion hour, or 2 hours rather.
I love that vibe that you're describing. I think maybe it has to do, and this kind of like, something we'd like to add here. It may have to do with the tool itself and the format that allows people. We thought about that. What if you have, because we have like 100 people show up. So how do you allow anyone to speak? Right? This is why we're doing it this way. But
we literally have like between, I don't know, 75 and 150 people show up every week. And so on the stage, there's no like mic spamming, because you just bring up people to the stage who raise their hand. And then an open discussion, even with like 75 people in a room, is still not a problem, except for sometimes people get into their little ideological trenches. And then sometimes there's like moderators who are just like, okay, you got to cool down for 5 minutes and I'm going to unmute you. Or if somebody's mic spamming, you can local mute them. So the moderators can mute them if, like, for some reason, they're in the bus or whatever. And then if they ask, they can get unmuted, and it's just fine. There's not really much of a problem at all.
Yeah, that's. I think maybe what we should do is some of us go over there and check it out and see maybe if we can borrow some of the machinery. This is a great suggestion. Also, you typed something, Benjamin, that on one of our threads. I'll just read it. I would prefer a weekly email newsletter with a summary of the archive papers, and as for daily, an RSS feed. Yes. Andrew, do we have an idea yet? We at least have a path forward on some of Benjamin's suggestions, but what do you think we could do better around what you were talking about?
I guess Benjamin's idea of like weekly summary is a good one. Like for me, you not always want to read the whole paper. Usually it's like one idea or like two ideas in the paper at max that are really, really important, like one sentence that captures like what actually they did in the paper. And this is like if there could be like a feed that, okay, I read this paper and this is the idea, it just saves time and like puts you on the same page with what's the latest stuff in the field. So I think like having some kind of feed, Discord or like blog, whatever, would be really beneficial for the community, and it will help to bring more people like looking at the news, subscribing to it, and participating in the community.
Well, one thing I could imagine us doing is system. I mean, the easiest thing is some kind of keyword finder. If you find anything on archive today, I mean, there's major conferences which we can look at by hand, but then archive things appearing every day could be simple keyword finding. But then one problem with Neuro-Symbolic is there are a lot of things I recognize as Neuro-Symbolic that don't say Neuro-Symbolic anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. This kind of gets into a deeper research problem if we were to try to make a system, which is, which gets into deep understanding of text, but at a minimum. But it also requires deep understanding of Neuro-Symbolic AI. So, yeah, go ahead.
I guess from my personal experience, feeds that I follow are personal feeds. They're not like company feeds, but like a person who's reading articles and he's just like, okay, this was interesting for me, I'm going to publish a personal blog about it. And this actually, like, if there are people in the community who are interested in that and who are willing to like share their blogs or something, that would be amazing. Yeah, like Alex, if you're reading papers, you can just, I don't know, do small summaries. I guess you're reading a lot of papers on Neuro-Symbolic, so
Well, what if we had some people who volunteered to share papers that they think are interesting on a daily or weekly basis, and then what the system shows you is the abstract, the title and abstract. Is that too long, actually? I mean,
Uh, I, I think abstract is fine, but like usually, like find an abstract. This is what LLM can do. Like you need a human curation. Like not every time like the abstract actually represents the paper.
mm-hmm.
Or I mean at least like there should be some human involvement, because like having just an abstract, you can just build an agent that would parse the archive for you and like send you an this is actually another solution, like possible solution that would narrow the search, like just have an agent that would parse archive every day and find everything related to neurosymbolic.
Yeah.
It would be a dump at first, but it will work.
Even a dump, to me, I think one thing you're bringing up is even something that's more toward the end of, I mean, here what we do is toward the end of curation, and it's time intensive and expertise intensive. But at the other end of the spectrum, just comprehensiveness, comprehensive coverage, capture of, even if it's too much, having at least both ends of the spectrum captured seems good. Ambrose, I was going to suggest thinking back on purpose. I see the pragmatist approach often has an issue with problematization in application. Are we building a brain, or are we building a tool? And if so, what is its purpose? Yeah, I think this is what you're getting at, Max, right? Some people want to build a brain, like long-term science. Some people want to build a system. But there are interactions between the two that are useful. And having been in, just to say a bit more on that thread, having been in AI now for 32 years, seeing how AI plays out. Actually, AI has been this very interesting kind of had these contributions from all different kinds of other fields and random things like statistical physics and whatever, that initially you're like, okay, you may go, this is not what I'm interested in. But these things have had many times unexpected kind of big impacts in AI. So I'm personally a big fan of the hear a little bit of everything kind of thing, because it's actually proved to be very useful in moving AI forward. But I get, of course, sometimes you just want to like go to a NeurOps workshop that's focused on one very specific topic, and so we have had the thought of tracks, and we tried to do this. One experiment we did was in our 5-day version that we did a few years ago. We had it, the days differentiated by topic, as Olga briefly flashed. So I don't know. What do you think, Max? What on this?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it came out kind of incorrectly, or not how I meant it when I was originally pitching it. But I don't think that speciation of neurosymbolic is really the right way to go. I think that you're totally right that because it's such a fast growing field and it's still relatively small in terms of the long scale of how big we think it will get, speciating right now into these like cognitive and non-cognitive approaches would be really detrimental, especially because we don't know how these different approaches are going to interact long term. However, I think that you're right in saying that raising consciousness of the historical way that AI has been influenced by a variety of factors, and how in some cases those turned out to be really important to the development of future AI technology, whereas in other cases they didn't really pan out. And raising people's awareness that there is a difference of opinion right now might actually be helpful in realizing the way in which the cognitivist approach and the non-cognitivist approach have some overlap in neuro-symbolic AI that can be clarified further. That there's a reason why they're both drawn to this term of neuro-symbolic, and that reason should be I don't know, explored further.
And one thing we can do along those lines is, which we tried to do a little bit, is show kind of a sort of taxonomy of, here are the different strains of thought. And we also try to chop things up into, of all different things that are relevant, chop things up into, well, here's some foundations people are working on. Here's some use cases people are working on. Here's some frameworks. So, there's also this bring up an even more of a meta thing in the taxonomy, which is what's the overall purpose, kind of scientific understanding, or system building. So now, so some things we've had along the lines of a taxonomy are like Henry Kautz's, taxonomy, for those of you who saw that, which we're fans of. But any other way you think? I think this is going toward like what people at least want to see a big picture, like what's the landscape look like, and then I can choose which part of the landscape I'm drawn toward. So this is part of what we're trying to do in this course sequence we talked about, so you can at least find your place. But but anything we could do that's better than that as well.
Well, now that you're mentioning it, maybe there is some space for like a CS50 or CS100 level understanding, because I think that, for instance, yesterday at the Linux Foundation meeting, I was telling the people who were complaining about the hallucination problem about old papers by Claude Shannon and by John von Neumann about probabilistic logic, and how essentially back in the old days they were trying to get digital logic from these probabilistic vacuum tube transistors, and how Shannon's theory reflects like the information entropy and how you need to have feedback to reduce the entropy through multiple layers and stuff. And without like the sort of foundational first principles understanding, this is how we get into building these unreliable systems, because we just build on top of other things without actually thinking from first principles to begin with, right? So maybe there is some space for like some first principles, like information theory of like the dichotomy of neuro-symbolic systems, that should be provided as like a 100 level course to Harvard's or Stanford's or maybe these computer science programs, because I feel like maybe that's a missing component in like the standard computer science curriculum.
Oh, we 1000% agree with that. So, I think first of all, the number of researchers and people working in AI has grown exponentially. But another way to look at that is most people working in AI today have started very recently. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that maybe they haven't seen, and also stuff that we think people should have seen, even though it isn't in their computer science curriculum where they learned AI. So information theory you mentioned is one of them in our view. So we have our own work on that, and believe that's actually really important. But let me just, in the remaining few minutes, read a few more. So suggestion from Olivia on Discord.
Alex, sorry to interrupt. I would like to remind you that we also need to share next week's announcement.
Oh, yes. Okay, thank you. let me quickly do that. So next week, am my slides getting shown?
Not yet. 1 second.
Ken, do you want to just show my slides real quick? There we go. Okay, thank you. So next week we have Parth, who's going to talk about work on Neuro-Symbolic AI for images, and he's going to be covering a couple papers on a particular research thread. All right, so we'll go back to normal programming, so to speak, talks next week. But so just to finish this, I think we could have a crowdsourcing effort for paper reading. This is from Olivia. People who are willing to share good papers they read and what they learned from reading papers should be allowed to submit it, and it could be aggregated and shared with the people subscribing to the mailing list weekly. Yes, good. I think we need to land on a good little mechanism around these ideas. So thank you. And then one more. This is a neat group, for instance, from Joshua. I'm glad I stumbled on you all. While skimming your summer school from last year, I saw talks that were mostly neural first, as opposed to rooted in symbolics. Is that an accurate perception of your group? This is getting to so kind of your thread, Max. So because we thing where in some other things that focus on neurosymbolic, they're really heavily symbolic, and some stuff that's heavily neural. And, but in other communities like ICLR are heavily neural. There is starting to be a lot of neurosymbolic work there, but they don't show heavily symbolic stuff. So we have both really, and we attempt to do both. Sometimes, of course, too hardcore. If you're like a really neural person, we'll show you some very hardcore symbolic stuff. It's maybe too hardcore for you, and vice versa. You're a very symbolic person, we show you some pure neural stuff, maybe that's headed in a neurosymbolic direction. It's like, whoa, that's so neural. But that's deliberate. So we sort of want to infuse these different viewpoints. Hopefully that answered your question, Josh. We're trying to actually show full versions of both. Okay, well, I think we're out of time. So really appreciate guys. You are the few, the brave, and hopefully that will embolden others to pop in next time. So thank you so much. Let's continue. Let's actually have deeper conversations. We'll connect with you. And for everyone, please let's help build on these ideas. This is fantastic. This is exactly the kind of feedback that I was looking for and ideas. So really appreciate it, and see you all on Discord and next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.